It's been said that early explorers were perhaps the astronauts of their day.
Today's standards is like being on a space station cut loose, and they thought, there's just no way of salvation.
This is like finding an extra footprint on the moon, a discovery that just shouldn't be there. The tale of Shackleton's Endurance is history's ultimate survival story, a closed book about 28 men who conquered the impossible. But what if the book was missing a page? A new project using artificial intelligence to restore the expedition's fragile photos found more than just frostbite and desperation in the eyes of the crew. It found a ghost in the machine, a chilling detail that suggests the crew was hiding a terrible secret about who or what was really with them on the ice. A secret in the shadows. The story of Sir Ernest Shackleton and the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition is the stuff of legend. In 1914, he and 27 other men set sail on the ship Endurance, aiming to be the first to cross the Antarctic continent on foot. It's a story we've all heard, a testament to leadership and the raw will to survive. They never even touched the continent they meant to cross. Instead, their ship was trapped, crushed by ice, and the men were stranded for nearly 2 years in the most hostile environment on Earth. They faced temperatures that plunged to 20 degrees below zero, starvation, and a journey of 800 miles across the world's most violent ocean in a tiny 23-foot open boat. Against all odds, every single one of the 28 men survived. It's a perfect story, maybe a little too perfect. It's funny when you think about it how we accept history as a closed case. But recently, a team at a leading university launched the Antarctic Echoes Initiative. Their goal was simple: use a brand new type of AI to scan and restore the original glass plate negatives taken by the expedition's photographer, Frank Hurley. The AI uses something called quantum dot spectral analysis, a fancy way of saying it can see things the human eye completely misses. Subtle heat signatures, hidden layers, and details buried in the shadows and film grain. The initial results were breathtaking, showing the men's faces with a clarity that was almost haunting. But then the AI found something else, something that didn't make any sense. The AI began flagging a recurring anomaly in the group photos. It identified a 29th person. At first, the researchers dismissed it as a glitch, maybe just a shadow or a piece of equipment that the AI misinterpreted. But the anomaly kept showing up. The system, which they programmed to identify each crew member, designated this unexplained figure as Subject Zero. It wasn't just a blurry shape. In one enhanced image of the crew on the deck of the icebound Endurance, the AI sharpened a figure standing in the background, partially obscured by rigging. The facial recognition pattern didn't match Shackleton or any of the 27 other known crewmen. Who was this person? A stowaway seems impossible on a ship where every ounce of food was meticulously rationed for a multi-year journey. Every man had a specific vital job. An extra mouth to feed would have been a catastrophe from day one. The real shocker came when the AI cross-referenced all the images. It found Subject Zero in 7 different photographs taken over several months. He's always in the background, never a part of the main group, a ghostly presence at the edge of history. The most disturbing part? The AI created a timeline. And on that timeline, Subject Zero is there while the ship is trapped, and he's there when they are camped on the ice. But then, right when the situation gets truly desperate, he vanishes completely. This discovery changes everything. The heroic story of 28 survivors is suddenly overshadowed by the mystery of a 29th man who disappeared. What the AI found forces us to look at this legendary expedition with fresh eyes, to question the perfect narrative. The Ship of Nightmares. To understand how chilling this discovery is, you have to know what these men went through. When the Endurance set sail in late 1914, it was heading into a freak Antarctic summer. The temperatures were unusually cold, and the pack ice in the Weddell Sea was thicker and more expansive than anyone anticipated. Shackleton was a brilliant leader known for his ability to inspire loyalty and get his men out of tight spots. But this was a spot no one could escape. By January of 1915, the ship was completely and hopelessly trapped in a sea of solid ice. As the ship's carpenter, Chippy McNish, wrote in his diary, "The pressure is a serious business. I would not give much chance of ever getting away from here." They were stuck. For months, the ship drifted with the ice, becoming a tiny, fragile prison in an endless white desert. Life became a strange mix of routine and waiting. The men played soccer on the ice and put on costume shows in the ship's hold, which they nicknamed the Ritz. Shackleton, the boss, knew that morale was everything. He kept his men busy with chores and routines to fight off the crushing boredom and fear, but all the while the ice was tightening its grip. The ship's hull, made of wood 3 feet thick, groaned under the immense pressure. The sound was terrifying, like a giant beast trying to crack a nut. The thing is, this is the exact period where the AI gets the clearest readings of Subject Zero. In one of Frank Hurley's most famous photos, the men are working to chop away ice from the side of the ship. When the AI analyzed the deep shadows under the ship's hull, it reconstructed a faint image. There, crouched down, is a figure. He isn't working with the others. He seems to be watching. If a stowaway was on board, this is when he would have been discovered. Imagine the crisis this would have caused. Supplies were already calculated down to the last biscuit. An extra man wasn't just an inconvenience, he was a death sentence for everyone. Yet there's no mention of it in any of the official logs or diaries. Not a single word. This suggests a massive secret, one that Shackleton and his most trusted men like Frank Wild might have decided to keep under wraps to prevent a full-blown panic among the crew. The pressure on the ship became relentless. In October 1915, after 9 months of being trapped, the Endurance finally lost its fight. The ice bent her wooden beams and twisted her keel. Water poured in. On October 27th, Shackleton gave the order everyone dreaded: abandon ship. As he wrote in his diary, "Ship and stores are gone, so now we'll go home." But home was over 1,000 miles away, across an impassable wasteland of shifting ice. They were 28 men, plus one mystery, now truly alone at the bottom of the world. And as they set up their first desolate camp on the ice, the question looms: what did they do with their secret passenger when the food ran out? Abandoning the Endurance was the beginning of the true nightmare. The men were now living on a floating piece of ice, an unstable raft in a frozen ocean. They had 3 small lifeboats salvaged from the ship and whatever supplies they could drag with them. For the next 6 months, they drifted helplessly. Their new reality was a constant gnawing hunger. Their initial plan was to march 346 miles to Paulet Island, where a supply depot had been left years earlier. But the terrain was impossible, a chaos of giant ice ridges and slushy pits. The march was abandoned after just a few agonizing miles. They were completely at the mercy of the currents. As supplies dwindled, the men began hunting seals and penguins. Their diet became a monotonous and grim rotation of meat. Food became an obsession. As one crewman wrote, their meals were seal steak, stewed seal, penguin steak, stewed penguin. The crazy part is, even this source of food began to run out. Game became scarce. By March of 1916, with the men growing weaker, Shackleton had to make one of the most brutal decisions of the entire journey. The surviving sled dogs, who had become pets to many of the men, could no longer be fed. He ordered them to be put down. It was a heartbreaking moment, but a necessary one for survival. Not only did it conserve food, but the dogs themselves became a source of it. This is the exact point in the timeline where the AI loses all trace of Subject Zero. He appears in a photo taken at what the crew called Patience Camp, a bleak settlement on a large ice floe. The enhanced image shows a gaunt figure huddled near the back of a tent. It's the last time he is ever seen. After the dogs were dealt with and the food situation reached its absolute breaking point, Subject Zero vanishes from the photographic record. There are no more anomalies, no more unexplained figures in the background. He's just gone. You have to wonder what that means. In a place where every scrap of protein was the difference between life and death, the sudden disappearance of an undocumented person is deeply, deeply disturbing. The crew's diaries from this time are filled with despair and hunger, but they are also strangely silent on certain details. The ship's doctor, James McElroy, even wrote parts of his diary in code, a sign that some things were too sensitive to be written plainly. Did the crew make another even harder decision out there on the ice? A decision so terrible that they all swore an oath of silence. The story they told the world was one of unbroken unity and heroism. But the AI's discovery suggests a much darker chapter, one that was deliberately erased from history. With their phantom companion gone, the remaining men face their next great challenge: the survivor's burden. The ordeal was far from over. In April 1916, the ice floe they were living on finally broke apart beneath their feet. The men scrambled into their 3 small boats and began a hellish 7-day journey through a raging sea to reach the desolate shores of Elephant Island. They hadn't stood on solid ground in 497 days. The island was a barren rock offering no real hope of rescue. It was just a temporary reprieve from the sea. From here, Shackleton made his most audacious gamble. He would take the strongest of the boats, the James Caird, and 5 men and attempt to sail 800 miles across the Drake Passage, the most treacherous stretch of ocean on the planet, to a whaling station on South Georgia Island. It was an almost certain final journey. They faced 50-foot waves, hurricane-force winds, and freezing spray that coated the boat in ice. Through the brilliant navigation of Frank Worsley, who took sightings of the sun only a handful of time, they miraculously made it. But they landed on the wrong side of the island. They still had to cross an unmapped interior of glaciers and mountains no human had ever conquered. In a final 36-hour push, Shackleton and 2 others, with nothing but a bit of rope and screws hammered into their boots for grip, crossed the island and staggered into the whaling station looking like wild men. When Shackleton finally introduced himself to a man he knew, the old whaler reportedly turned away and cried. Every single man left behind on Elephant Island was eventually rescued. Not a single life from the official crew was lost. So how do we square this incredible story of heroism with the AI's discovery of a lost man? This is where you, me, anyone has to ask the hard questions. If this is all true, are we missing a key detail? The thing is, history is written by the survivors. If something terrible happened to a stowaway, something born of desperation and starvation, it's not a story anyone would want to tell. It would tarnish the legend. Shackleton's primary job was to bring his men home, and he did. Perhaps in his mind, the official crew were his only men. An outsider, an unplanned variable, might have been seen as a threat to the survival of the entire group. The AI doesn't provide answers, only disturbing questions. It presents data that suggests the presence and then the sudden absence of a person. The implication that this Subject Zero might have been sacrificed for the good of the others is horrifying. It recasts the heroes of the Endurance as men who were forced to make a truly unspeakable choice in the face of an impossible situation. This changes how we see a story we thought we knew. Does new technology help us find the hidden truth, or does it just create new, darker myths? Let us know your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that challenge history.